My son said he was doing what's best for me. But when he sent me to that nursing home, he had no idea the past he tried to bury was about to walk through its doors. Asterisk, I still remember the way the sunlight hit the kitchen that morning, soft and pale, almost apologetic. It was one of those quiet Sundays in November when the world feels half asleep. I'd made my coffee, fed the cat, and was sitting by the window, watching the maple trees outside lose their last few leaves. It was peaceful until I heard his car pull into the driveway. Ethan never came without calling first. That should have been my first clue. He walked in with that fake cheerful smile he always used when he was about to say something I wouldn't like. "Hey, Mom," he said, setting down his keys. "You look good. How've you been?" I smiled politely. "Same as yesterday and the day before that." "Sit down, Ethan, you sound rehearsed." He laughed, short and awkward. "You always could read me too well." Then he sat down across from me, phone in hand. Eyes restless, like he was already halfway out the door. I knew something was coming. "I just didn't expect it to sound like this, Mom," he started carefully. "I've been thinking a lot about your safety." "My safety?" I frowned. "Ethan, I've lived here for 30 years, alone, safely," he sighed. "You fell last month, Mrs. Harlow told me. You didn't tell anyone." "That's not okay, Mom. What if you'd hit your head?" I kept my voice calm. "People trip, Ethan. That doesn't mean I need a babysitter." He leaned forward. "It's not just that. This house is too big for you. It's falling apart. You shouldn't be living alone anymore." That's when he opened his bag and pulled out a folder, neat, clean, typed like a business deal. "What's that?" I asked. He slid it toward me. "Maplewood Nursing Residence. It's a really nice place. Modern, safe, great staff. They even have art classes." I stared at him for a few seconds. "A nursing home?" He didn't answer. And in that silence, everything fell apart. I leaned back. "You're serious?" He nodded slowly. "They can take you next week." It was like my heartbeat stopped for a second. Not from anger. From disbelief. "Ethan," I said softly, "you're putting me in a home?" "Mom, please don't make it sound like that. It's not about getting rid of you. It's about making sure you're safe." Safe? That word again. People use safe when they're trying to make betrayal sound reasonable. "Who told you this was what I wanted?" I asked. He hesitated. "It's not about what you want. It's what you need." I felt my throat tighten. "You know who used to say that?" "Your father." His face froze. He didn't know what to say, and I didn't help him. I just watched him, this grown man I raised, who now looked at me like I was a problem to be solved. "What about the house?" I asked. He took a deep breath. "I'll handle it. I already talked to a realtor. They said it could sell fast." There it was. The real reason. Not safety, money. I smiled, bitter and quiet. "You've planned this well, haven't you?" He looked away. "I'm just trying to do the right thing." "The right thing for who?" I asked. He didn't answer. The silence in that room was heavier than any argument. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the yard where he used to play baseball. He was 10 years old the day his father left. He'd cried so hard. I promised him I'd never leave him, no matter what. Now here he was, leaving me while pretending he was saving me. I turned back to him and said quietly, "If this is what you've decided, Ethan, then fine. I won't fight you." He blinked. "You're not mad?" "Mad?" I smiled faintly. "No, just tired." He nodded, looking relieved. He thought it was over. He even hugged me, a short, guilty hug that didn't feel like love anymore. Then he left. The moment his car disappeared down the street, the silence swallowed me whole. Every sound in that house, the ticking clock, the hum of the fridge, suddenly felt louder. I sat there for hours until the light faded. Then I went upstairs. The attic smelled like dust and memory. In the far corner, under a faded quilt, sat a small wooden box I hadn't touched in 20 years. Inside were letters, old, yellowed, tied with a blue ribbon. Some were mine. Some were his. And one, right on top, was written in the same bold handwriting I'd recognize anywhere. Richard Morgan. My late husband. Ethan's father, the man who'd built this house with lies and left me to clean up his sins. I unfolded the letter carefully. The paper trembled in my hands, and as I read those first few lines, my chest went cold. Because I remembered what he did. What he hid. What Ethan didn't know. And suddenly, everything made sense. The urgency. The push to sell the house, the nursing home. The lies disguised as concern. I closed the box and whispered to the empty attic. "You're sending me away, Ethan. But you have no idea who's coming to pick me up." Because someone was. Someone who still owed me the truth. And when they arrived, this family and this house would finally face everything it tried to forget. Asterisk. The day I left my house felt colder than it should have been. November wind cut through my coat as I stood by the front steps, watching two strangers carry out the last boxes of my life. Ethan was there. Of course, standing by his car, checking his watch every few minutes. Acting like this was a normal errand. "Mom," I packed your clothes and the photo albums you wanted, he said, trying to sound calm. They'll bring the rest next week, I nodded. What about the papers in my study? They're in storage, he said quickly. Too quickly. You won't need them there. That was the moment I knew. He'd taken them. The files. The ones from Richard's old office. But I said nothing. Not yet. Instead, I smiled. You think of everything, don't you? He looked relieved. Poor boy thought I was a green dot when the van pulled up. I turned for one last look at the house. The porch light flickered like it always had. The old oak tree creaked. Every corner of that house held memories, laughter, tears, secrets. But it wasn't mine anymore. Not for now. I stepped into the van, my hands shaking just a little. Ethan closed the door behind me, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "You'll be okay, Mom, I promise." I didn't answer. Because deep down, I already knew I would be more than okay. I would be free. Maplewood nursing residence wasn't terrible. It was quiet, clean, full of people trying to look content while waiting for their next family visit. The kind of place that smelled like coffee and sanitizer. The staff was friendly enough, though their smiles didn't quite reach their eyes. "Welcome, Mrs. Morgan," said a nurse named Claire. "Let's get you settled in." My room was small but neat. Pale walls, a single bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out onto a half-dead garden. I unpacked slowly, placing Richard's letter inside the nightstand drawer. That letter was my secret. My reminder that everything happening wasn't an ending. It was the start. That night, I couldn't sleep. The hum of the fluorescent lights outside my room made the silence worse. So I got up and walked the hallway. Most doors were closed, the halls dimly lit. Then I heard a voice, low, familiar. Like a half-forgotten melody. "Margaret?" I froze. No one here knew me well enough to say my first name. I turned slowly. A man stood by the nurse's station, tall, gray-haired, maybe in his early 60s. His face was older, thinner, but I knew that voice. "Daniel?" I whispered. He smiled. "You remember Daniel Blake, Richard's old business partner. The man who disappeared the year Richard died. What are you doing here?" I asked cautiously. He nodded toward the far hallway. "They call it living assistance now. Makes it sound nicer, doesn't it?" I didn't smile. My mind was already racing. "Why him? Why now?" "I saw your name on the register," he continued. "Didn't think I'd ever see you again." "Neither did I said quietly. "You vanished right after the accident," he sighed. "That wasn't an accident, Margaret. You know that." I did know. Or maybe I'd tried not to know for too long. He looked around, lowering his voice. "I still have the documents. The ones Richard hid before he died." My pulse quickened. "Documents?" he nodded. "Financials, signatures, offshore accounts, everything he buried under that fake company name." I took a step closer. "Why are you telling me this now?" He met my eyes. "Because I think your son found them. And I think he's trying to finish what his father started." The hallway suddenly felt smaller. The air thicker. I whispered, "You think Ethan knows?" Daniel's eyes darkened. "I don't think. I'm sure. He contacted me a month ago. Wanted to buy me out, quietly. Said it was to close unfinished family business." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Ethan. My son. My husband's son. Doing what his father did, all over again." I steadied myself against the wall. "What did you say to him?" Daniel hesitated. "I told him no. That's when my house got broken into. Files gone." Just like that, my breath caught. "So that's why he wanted me out of the house." "Exactly," Daniel said. "He's looking for something. And if you're here, it means he's close." I looked at him. Really looked at him, and saw the same quiet fear I'd been living with for years. But under it, something else. Guilt. "You helped Richard, didn't you?" I asked softly. He didn't deny it. "I did. Until I realized what he was doing, hiding money under your name. If those documents ever come out, Ethan's career, his company, everything, gone." I stared out the window. The garden below was empty, moonlight glinting off the frozen pond. All these years, I thought I'd buried my pain. But it wasn't buried. It was waiting. I turned back to Daniel. "Then we find them before he does." He gave a slow nod. "Are you sure you want to open that door again?" "I didn't open it," I said coldly. "Ethan did." Daniel studied me for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You're still the same, Margaret. Calm on the outside, storm underneath." I almost laughed. "You have no idea." Later that night, as I lay awake, I thought about everything he'd said. Richard's lies. Ethan's betrayal. The house I'd built and lost. I'd spent my whole life keeping peace. But peace built on lies doesn't last forever. The letter in my drawer wasn't just a memory anymore. It was a weapon. And Daniel Blake, whether I liked it or not, had just become my only ally. Somewhere between anger and heartbreak, I whispered into the dark, "You wanted me gone, Ethan. Now watch what comes back." The next morning, I woke before sunrise. The sky outside was a faded gray, the kind that looks tired even before the day begins. Claire. The nurse came in with my medication. You didn't sleep much again, she said gently. I had a lot on my mind, she smiled. You and everyone else here. I waited until she left before I got dressed. I wasn't planning to stay inside that day. Daniel met me in the courtyard after breakfast. He had 2 cups of cheap coffee and a look that said he hadn't slept either. Still think this is a good idea? He asked, handing me a cup. I think it's the only idea, I said. If Ethan's after those files, we find them first. He sat beside me on the bench. You realize your son isn't just playing with family secrets anymore. He's into something deeper. The kind of thing people don't walk away from easily. I looked straight at him. Then he should have known better than to underestimate me. Daniel chuckled softly. You sound like the Margaret I remember. I sipped my coffee. Let's focus on what we need. You said he took your files. What's missing exactly? He leaned back, rubbing his temples. A set of hard drives. Richard's backups. He used them to keep offshore data hidden, fake company names, trust accounts, insurance payoffs. But they're encrypted. Only someone who knows the original passcodes could open them, and you think I might know them? I asked. I think your husband trusted you more than he admitted. You lived with him, Margaret. You saw things. Heard things. Maybe even names or numbers that didn't make sense at the time. I stared into my cup, trying to remember. Richard was always careful, secretive to a fault. But he had habits, routines, codes hidden in the ordinary. Then something clicked. The cottage. I whispered. Daniel frowned. What cottage? Up north, near the lake. Richard used to take trips there every few months, said it helped him clear his head. I thought it was just fishing and bourbon. But one summer, I found him burning papers behind the cabin. He said it was old tax junk. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Could he have stored the backups there? Maybe, I said. If he wanted to hide something off the grid, that's the perfect place. He nodded slowly. Then that's where we start. Getting out of Maplewood wasn't hard. It just required a little acting. Doctor's appointment. I told Claire that afternoon. My son arranged it. Said a driver would pick me up. She hesitated. I didn't see anything scheduled. I smiled politely. You know how he is, always last minute. 10 minutes later, I walked out the front doors with Daniel at my side. Both of us pretending to look frail and innocent. Once in his old blue sedan, Daniel grinned. Still convincing as ever. Comes with motherhood, I said dryly. The drive to the lake took 3 hours. Long stretches of empty highway, leaves whipping across the windshield. It felt strange being out again, free, but not really. Like a ghost revisiting the world she left behind. Daniel kept glancing over. You okay? I'm fine, I said. Just thinking, he nodded, then after a moment asked, do you ever wonder if Richard planned this? If all of this, the lies, the money, the secrecy, was his way of controlling everything, even after death? I looked out the window. He didn't plan for me to survive him. That was his first mistake. By the time we reached the lake, the sun was dipping behind the trees. The old cabin sat at the edge of the water, shutters half-rotted, the roof covered in moss. Still standing, just like me. Daniel unlocked the door with a key that looked as old as the place itself. Inside, the air smelled of dust and damp wood. The furniture was covered in sheets, and the fireplace still had ashes from years ago. I moved slowly through the room, my eyes scanning every corner. Then I saw it, a floorboard slightly out of place beneath the old rug. Knew it, I murmured. I knelt down and pried it open with a metal rod from the fireplace. Underneath was a small tin box, rusted but intact. Daniel's breath caught. After all these years. Inside were 3 USB drives, a small notebook, and an envelope with my name written on it in Richard's handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper, a code, and one line that made my stomach turn. If you're reading this, Margaret, it means Ethan knows too much. Daniel leaned in. What does it mean? I stared at the code. It looked random, letters, numbers, symbols, but I knew better. Richard's passcodes were always personal, hidden in something ordinary. I folded the paper carefully. It means we're not the only ones who know about this cabin. At that exact moment, a car door slammed outside. Daniel's eyes widened. Did you tell anyone we were coming? No, I whispered. Footsteps crunched on the gravel, slow, confident. I peered through the dusty window and froze. It wasn't Ethan. It was someone I'd never seen before. A man in a black jacket, talking on the phone, scanning the cabin like he knew exactly where to look. Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. We need to go, now, but I didn't move. My eyes stayed on the stranger as he turned toward the door. Because I realized something, this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about cleaning up the past, and we were the mess. Asterisk the moment that man's shadow crossed the cabin door, everything in me froze. He wasn't knocking. He was listening. Listening for movement. Daniel mouthed, "Back door." We moved quietly, step by step, across the creaky floorboards. Every sound felt like a scream in the silence. Outside, the crunch of gravel grew louder, then bang. The front door swung open. We slipped out the back, hearts pounding, breath shaking in the cold air. The wood swallowed us, damp leaves sticking to our shoes. Behind us, we heard the stranger's footsteps enter the cabin. Then the sound of wood splintering. He was tearing the place apart. We hid behind an old oak. Trying to steady our breathing, Daniel whispered, "He's searching for the drives. And if he finds them? He won't. You still have them, right?" I clutched the tin box under my coat. "Yeah, but if he's working for Ethan, then your son's not just greedy," Daniel cut in. "He's dangerous." We waited until the man drove off before heading back to the car. The night air was sharp, and my hands trembled from more than just the cold. Inside the car, Daniel started the engine but didn't drive. He just stared through the windshield. "You think he followed us?" I asked. He nodded slowly. He knew exactly where to go. Either he tracked my license plate or... He looked at me. Someone told him. My stomach turned. "You think Ethan knew I'd come here?" "Margaret, your son might not have sent him, but someone close to him did." I looked out the window at the lake. The water was still black. For the first time, I realized how deep this all went. We drove through the night, back toward the city. I couldn't stop thinking about that code. Those random letters and numbers that Richard had left behind. When we finally reached Daniel's office downtown, he pulled the blinds shut and set up his laptop. "Let's see if these drives still talk," he muttered. He plugged one in. The screen blinked to life, showing encrypted files with labels like client_trusts and account_backups. Daniel tried the code from the letter. It didn't work. Then I noticed something. The paper wasn't just a list of symbols. Some letters were capitalized in a strange pattern. "LRD 1027, I whispered. That was his old boat, the Lydia Rose D. He registered it in October 27th. Daniel typed it in. Click, the screen unlocked. A flood of files appeared. Emails, financial statements, offshore transfers, and then a folder labeled EW. My throat tightened. Ethan Whitmore. Daniel opened it. Inside were wire transfers, luxury property deals, and a document titled Healthcare Trust Allocation, Maplewood Facility. I felt my blood run cold. "That's the nursing home." He scrolled down, and there it was, my signature forged. Ethan had transferred $500,000 from my late husband's estate into a private fund, using my name. "That's how he convinced the home to keep you there," Daniel said. "He paid them to make sure you stayed quiet." I sank back into the chair. He wanted me locked away so I couldn't question him. He thought no one would believe an old woman over her loving son. Daniel looked at me carefully. "What do you want to do now?" I took a deep breath. "Expose him." The next morning, I called Ethan. His voice came through, smooth and confident. "Mom, are you okay? Claire told me you had an appointment yesterday. You should have let me know." "Oh, I'm fine," I said calmly. "Actually, I found some of Dad's old things. Thought you might want to come by and see them." A pause. "Where are you?" "At the lake house." Another pause, longer this time. "Mom, that place burned down years ago." I smiled faintly. "Then I guess you'll be surprised when you see it." He didn't respond for a moment, then said, "I'll be there this evening." I hung up. Daniel stared at me. "You sure that's wise?" "No," I said. "But it's necessary." That evening, the sun melted into a red horizon as we parked a few miles away from the cabin. Daniel had cameras set up around the place, small ones connected to his laptop. We watched from inside the car as Ethan's black SUV pulled up. He stepped out wearing a tailored coat, his expression tense. Behind him, the same man from last night. "There's our guy," Daniel muttered. "So he is working for Ethan." Ethan walked into the cabin, phone in hand, pacing. His voice came through faintly on the mic. "She's not here." "But she's been. She found something." Pause. "No, I don't care. We clean this up tonight." Daniel's jaw clenched. "He's planning something." I took a deep breath. "Let's give him something to clean." An hour later, Ethan drove off, leaving the cabin dark again. We went inside after he left. Daniel pointed to a corner where Ethan had dropped a folder. Inside were papers marked Transfer of Guardianship, Margaret Whitmore. I stared at the form. My name, my signature. Again, forged. It wasn't just money. Ethan was trying to take full control of my estate, my freedom, my entire life. Daniel said quietly, "He's filing to have you declared mentally unfit." I felt something inside me shift. The kind of stillness that comes before a storm. "Then we'll show him just how sane I am." That night, I wrote Ethan a message and sent it to his private number. "You wanted control, Ethan. Meet me tomorrow at the cabin alone. It's time we talked about what you really inherited." The lake was completely still that morning. No wind, no sound, just silence that felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Daniel parked the car far down the dirt road, out of sight. He adjusted the hidden microphones and checked the camera feed one last time. You sure you want to do this alone? He asked. I've waited too long to let someone else speak for me, I said. He looked at me for a long second, then nodded. I'll be right here. As I walked toward the cabin, the smell of pine and smoke hung in the air. Ghosts of memories I'd buried long ago. Every step felt like walking back through the years. Back to the woman I used to be before my son turned into a stranger. When I reached the porch, I heard a car door slam. Ethan's black SUV pulled up, tires crunching the gravel. He stepped out wearing a dark coat, sunglasses, and that same perfect, practiced smile that always looked good in public but never reached his eyes. Mom, he said, like nothing had ever gone wrong. You look good. Healthier than I expected. I smiled faintly. You sound surprised. I am, he said, walking closer. After you disappeared from the nursing home, I thought maybe. He stopped himself. Well, I didn't know what to think. I'm sure you didn't, I said softly. Come in, Ethan. Inside, the cabin looked the same as it had decades ago, quiet, dim. A place where secrets had always lived comfortably. Ethan looked around with a nostalgic smile. Dad used to love this place. Remember that summer he built the dock? I do, I said. I also remember the summer he started locking the shed. He turned to me slowly. What are you getting at? I gestured to the table where I'd placed the old tin box. I found something here. Something you were looking for. Ethan froze. His mask slipped for just a second. You shouldn't have touched any of Dad's things. Why? I asked calmly. Because they tell the truth? He sighed and sat down, crossing his arms. Mom, look. I know things have been confusing. You've been through a lot. Maybe the stress. Don't, I interrupted. Don't talk to me like I'm one of your clients. You lied to me, Ethan. You forged my name. You used my husband's estate to trap me in that place. His expression hardened. I did what I had to do. You weren't taking care of yourself. I was trying to protect you by stealing from me. He leaned forward, voice sharp. You have no idea how complicated Dad's finances were. He left debts, liabilities, connections you couldn't understand. I took control before anyone else could. I stared at him. You didn't take control. You just took what you wanted, he scoffed. You think you know everything? You think that box means something? You don't know what Dad was into. I do, I said quietly. I know exactly what he was into. And I know you've been continuing it. He froze. What? I opened the tin box and slid one of the drives across the table. Daniel and I decrypted them. Offshore accounts, shell companies, fake trusts. Your father's trail, and now yours. Every single transfer tied back to your firm. He stared at the drive, then back at me. You shouldn't have done that. I had to. You left me no choice. His voice dropped, darker now. Where's Daniel? Watching, I said. Ethan stood up. You think you're smarter than me? You don't know what you're dealing with. I know enough to end it. He moved toward me, his tone low and threatening now. You don't have any proof the court will believe. You're just a lonely old woman with stories. I smiled faintly. Maybe, but you forgot something. He frowned. What? I pointed toward the corner of the room, the small camera light blinking red. Ethan's eyes widened. Everything you just said, I whispered, is being recorded. Every word. For a long moment, there was silence. Only the sound of the wind outside, brushing against the cabin walls. Ethan's expression shifted, anger, then realization, then something like fear. He turned toward the door. You think you can ruin me? You think anyone will believe you over me? They will, I said. Because they'll see you exactly how you see me, someone you thought was powerless. He stood there, shaking his head, laughing bitterly. You were never supposed to find this. You were supposed to stay where I left you. That's the thing about mothers, Ethan, I said softly. We never stay where our children try to bury us. He stormed out of the cabin, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I stayed sitting at the table, breathing deeply, my hands trembling slightly. Daniel came in a few minutes later, holding the recording equipment. We got everything, he said quietly. Send it to the authorities. All of it, he nodded, then looked at me with concern. You okay? I don't know, I said honestly. I thought I'd feel victory. But all I feel is loss. Loss of what? I looked out the window where Ethan's car disappeared down the road. The boy I raised. The man he could have been. That night, we stayed at a small motel near the highway. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Ethan's face, the anger, the disbelief, the fear. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think you've won. But you don't know what Dad did before he died. My chest tightened. Daniel, half asleep, looked over. What's wrong? I showed him the screen. He read it, then whispered, he's not done. I turned off the phone and stared at the ceiling. Neither am I. Morning crept in slowly, painting the motel walls in pale gold. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching a mug of cold coffee, staring at nothing. After everything that had happened, the silence felt too loud. Daniel was packing his gear when he looked over at me. You didn't sleep again, did you? I shook my head. You ever realize how much truth can hurt even when you've been begging to find it? He zipped his bag. Yeah, but the pain means it's real. I gave a tired smile. Maybe that's what scares me the most. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. This time a voicemail. I pressed play. Ethan's voice filled the room. Mom, it's me. I need to talk to you, please. You don't understand what Dad made me do. I looked at Daniel. He's panicking. Daniel nodded. He's losing control. That's when people start making mistakes. I stood up slowly. Then let's let him talk. We met Ethan that evening at his father's old office. The same one Richard had used for years before his death. It hadn't changed much, dark wood paneling, shelves lined with law books. The faint smell of old bourbon in the air. Ethan was already there, pacing behind his father's desk. Eyes bloodshot, tie undone when he saw me. His expression broke, part anger, part regret. Mom, he said quietly. You don't know the full story, then tell me, I said. Start from the beginning. He hesitated, then looked toward a framed picture of Richard on the wall. Dad wasn't the man you thought he was. He didn't just have secret accounts. He had partners, dangerous ones. He laundered money for people who wouldn't hesitate to kill to keep it hidden. I crossed my arms. And you decided to take his place? Ethan's voice cracked. I didn't have a choice. When he died, they came to me. They said I owed them. They said if I didn't keep things running, they'd go after you. I stared at him for a long time. So you saved me by locking me away? His eyes filled with tears. I thought if you were in that nursing home, you'd be safe. I never meant for it to turn into this. For a moment, my anger faltered. There it was, the scared boy I'd raised, hiding behind the man he became. But then I remembered the forged signatures. The stolen money, the months he let me rot in that place. You had choices. Ethan, I said softly. And you chose power. He shook his head. I was trying to fix things. No, I whispered. You were trying to be him. Daniel, standing near the door, broke the silence. The files are already with the authorities. They know everything about your father, about the accounts, about you. Ethan looked at him in disbelief. You turned this into a legal circus? It's called justice, Daniel said quietly. Ethan's composure cracked. You think you're saving her? You just painted a target on her back. He slammed his fist on the desk. The picture of Richard fell, shattering on the floor. Ethan stared at it, at his father's frozen smile in the broken glass, and whispered, he always wins. Even dead. I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. No, Ethan, he doesn't, because this time, truth wins. Sirens echoed faintly outside. Ethan's head snapped up. Daniel looked at me. They're here. Ethan turned toward me, desperate. Mom, please. Tell them I was protecting you. Tell them I didn't mean. I held his gaze. I'll tell them the truth. Tears filled his eyes. You're really going to let them take me? My voice broke, just slightly. I already lost one man I loved to lies. I won't lose myself to another. He looked down, then slowly lifted his hands as the door burst open. Two federal agents stepped in, reading his rights. Ethan didn't fight. He didn't even look back. As they led him out, I heard him whisper, I'm sorry, Mom, when the room finally fell quiet again. I walked over to the shattered picture. The frame was broken, but inside was something else, a folded paper hidden behind the photograph. I pulled it out. It was a letter, written in Richard's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means the past has caught up with us. I built a world on lies, and I fear my son will pay for it. Margaret, forgive me. I wanted to leave you peace, not this. My hands trembled as I folded it back up. Daniel came beside me. You okay? I nodded slowly. For the first time in years. I think I am. A week later, I returned to the nursing home, not as a patient, but as a visitor. Claire smiled when she saw me. You look different, she said. I feel different. I donated part of my recovered estate to rebuild the facility, making sure no one there would ever be silenced or forgotten again. As I walked out into the courtyard, the wind carried the scent of rain. The same kind that fell the day Ethan was born. I looked up at the sky, whispering softly. You were my greatest love, Ethan, and my hardest lesson. That night, back at the lake, I sat by the water. The moonlight shimmered on the surface, calm and endless. Daniel's voice came from behind me. You sure you want to be alone out here? I smiled faintly. I'm not alone, he nodded, understanding, then walked away. I took the last of Richard's letters, the one he left in the cabin, and tossed it into the water. The paper floated for a moment, then slowly sank. I'm done carrying your ghosts, I whispered. The lake rippled once, then went still again. A year later, Ethan was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. His lawyers tried to paint him as a victim of circumstance, but the evidence was too strong. I didn't attend the trial. I didn't need to, truth had already spoken for me sometimes. When I walk by the lake at dusk, I imagine I hear two voices, Richard's deep and confident, Ethan's soft and regretful fading into the wind, and I smile. Not in triumph, but in peace, because after all these years, I finally understood, revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about reclaiming yourself. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it. Because somewhere out there someone needs to be reminded. It's never too late to take your power back. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more stories that stay with you long after they end.